My decision to place myself at risk of arrest came about as a result of paying attention to the efforts of people who have been struggling to bring about the changes that are so urgently needed if we are going to avoid catastrophe through war and environmental destruction. I have come to understand that working within the system, change comes about too little and too late. The global situation is now extremely precarious. We no longer have time for slow change. I grew up with a great interest in and passion for marine life. For the past 16 years, I've been working to raise public awareness around the great harm that is being done to that life because of the way the Navy chooses to use its sonars. These sonars blast extremely loud noise into the oceans, which would be fine if no one lived there. But the oceans are home to numerous species, many of whom are affected by that noise. This noise, which is capable of spreading out at dangerous levels over large areas of ocean, disrupts important behaviors such as feeding, breeding, and communication, raises stress levels, causes temporary or permanent hearing loss and other injuries, and as we have seen far too many times in the form of dead and dying whales on the beach, even kills. But those ones we see are just the tip of the iceberg. The great majority of harm being done we'll never see. That harm could be greatly reduced if only the Navy were willing to engage in some common sense mitigations, but it simply refuses to do this. It does not wish to be bothered. Arrogance is a fitting word here. I first became aware of the issue in 2000 following the mass stranding of at least 17 whales and dolphins from 4 species that resulted from sonar exercises in the Bahamas. I co-founded Citizens Opposing Active Sonar Threats, and for years we worked to educate the main public and our politicians about these threats, writing op-eds, meeting with our congressional delegation, testifying in Federal Advisory Committee and other hearings, and submitting extensive comments on numerous environmental impact statements regarding Navy sonar. We joined other groups in a lawsuit over the Navy's outrageous plan, which it is now carrying out, to build a 500 square mile instrumented sonar range where we'll engage in 470 annual sonar exercises, just offshore, of all places, of the only known calving grounds of the critically endangered right whale. As it always does, the Navy resorted to claims of national security, and we lost that lawsuit and the appeal, though the law was very clearly on our side. So despite the years and years of lawful work by organizations to rein in the harm being done by the Navy's reckless use of its sonar, that use is not only ongoing, it's actually escalating. It's very much business as usual for the Navy. Unfortunately, this business as usual seems to be the case in so many other areas where change is desperately needed, from overcoming resistance from the fossil fuel corporations so we can avoid catastrophic climate change, to stopping endless wars so we can live in peace and let the planet heal. Perhaps nothing will ever change as long as we keep our actions within the confines of the law. Looking back in history, we see that real change sometimes comes about only when people work outside of the law, as in the civil disobedience of Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. Last December, I had the great opportunity, as part of a delegation of Veterans for Peace, to travel to and get to know some of the wonderful people in Kangjang Village, who for 9 years now have been engaging in nonviolent civil disobedience to try to stop the construction of a Navy base that is destroying their village, their once beautiful environment, their sacred places, and prospects for a peaceful world. It was built to U.S. Navy specs and will port our nation's warships, very likely including the Zumwalt, whose christening we were protesting. The same ship whose sonar will wreak havoc on those beings in the sea. I was able to see firsthand how our Navy's policies are so strongly and so negatively impacting not only the whales, fish, and other marine life, but also the lives of people of Kangjang and others, so many around the world. Knowing that things must change, and soon, if we are to survive, I chose to take action that may help to bring about that change.